Welcome to the Empowered Women Show, episode number 17.
Welcome to the Empowered Women Show, inspiring women with small voices but big dreams to step up and fulfill their extraordinary potential. And now your host, Casey Lightbody.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Empowered Women Show. I'm your host, Casey Lightbody, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have our guest today, Tajci Cameron. Tajci is an internationally recognized singer-songwriter as well as a Huffington Post blogger. She's a motivational speaker and she's also the host of a TV show called Waking Up in America, which I can't wait to dive in and hear more about. But in Europe, Tajci won the hearts of audiences as a teenage superstar. And again, it's a really interesting journey and I can't wait to hear more about it and find out why she kind of got off that whole roundabout, as we call it. But her success then brought her fame and wealth. But more importantly, the real value was the lessons that she learned about the human soul and the real need for it to belong, connect, and live in freedom. Today, Tajci is inspiring, guiding, and empowering audiences to wake up from other people's dreams and expectations and truly live the life that they are created for. I can't wait to share her journey. Welcome to the show, Tajci.
Thank you, Casey. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to share your journey. It's been absolutely incredible. You shared with me a link that I've listened to, Tajci, and it's just such an interesting and inspiring journey. So I'd love to kind of dive in right back to the beginning, actually, and really share with our audience today. You were an international pop star, and it was just an amazing career that you were involved in, but you chose to turn your back on it and really walk away. And I'd love to start from then and really share your journey from then and to where you are now, inspiring audiences to really wake up and live the dream. So can you dive in a little bit and share that with us?
Sure. When I was 4 years old, I knew that what I wanted to do was to tell stories through music. And why? I wanted to really move the human heart. I would sing as a little girl, and I would notice that, I could make my mom smile and my dad, all emotional. And I felt this power of music, but it was also how I felt when I listened to music. I grew up in little Croatia. And at the time when I was growing up there, it was part of Yugoslavia, which was a communist country. So it was pretty, gray and gloomy. And we watched American movies and, once a week. Mm-hmm. I was somewhere around there, 4 or 5, and I saw the movie Oliver. And I just like the music and the colors and the hope. It just moved me from within so much that that's what I wanted to do for others. So I had this dream, and I worked hard. I went to music conservatory. I was involved with lots of things growing up, just working, because I knew I had to get all the tools to do what I wanted to do, change the world. Really, that was my, I really dreamt big. But then, as a teenager, it was all part of, logical. I mean, I started 17. I had my first grown-up, performance. And I even had a contract, demos that I did for Richard Branson in London. And then I came back to Croatia and I was broke. And nobody believed me that this thing happened in Croatia. So I went to a big producer and I said, hey, would you write me a few songs? I need to release a record so I can get to the next level. And in that process, so happened that my record company sent me to this competition, which in Europe, it's huge. It's Eurovision Song Contest.
It's massive. I know it. It's huge.
Yes. And I won for Yugoslavia. And this was right after Berlin Wall fell.
Wow. Okay.
So here I am in an orange dress, and I actually have you can't see it, but I have my little doll that they made, and, I'll tell you about it. But, I had this orange dress. I had this big smile, and all I wanted, I wasn't there to win. I was there to live my dream, to move these hearts, to bring this hope to change the world. I went back into my 4-year-old self. And I know that, it was a catchy song, but I know that the people responded to that energy, that hope, that optimism, that love that I had that was bursting out of me, that on the other side, as a person, as a teenage girl, I didn't know what to do with. Because I was all music all the time. And so, I won, I just swept swept the country. I had millions of people were my fans and not just fans, but like diehard fans. And I was overwhelmed by their love, by all of this. I mean, it was just such a great, strong connection. But then, it wasn't long after that I started to feel, okay, here I am living my dream, but I am really not in charge. I am a girl. I'm a blonde little girl. I'm a teenage blonde girl who sings. I don't write my music, and I'm singing somebody else's words. And I am, and then when they made me into a doll, I say metaphorically, it was my manager in my record company that moved its hands, and dressed it and did its hair. So I was really not in control. And I realized, oh my gosh, I am supposed to be this perfect doll with a voice, but without a voice. And I knew, I saw I had these millions of people who were my fans who hung on to every word. And here I was talking about, every interview I did was, what do I wear? What do I, what perfume I use, who I went to date with, have a date on. Who I was dating, all of this like stuff that, it's fun, but that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
And, and also I just lost all my confidence, because I also knew, I couldn't compete with the doll, and I couldn't grow. I couldn't show myself. I was a teenage girl. I didn't know. Just like teenage years, it's very hard for everyone.
That's incredible.
And so at that point, there came a point where then even the conflict started in Croatia. And when I realized, okay, all of this is just not working for me. It's not really, it's beautiful, it's successful, it's amazing. I have everything I need and ever wanted, but I knew that it wasn't me. I was losing myself.
Tajci, was there a moment in time that you really felt that, or was it over a period of time? You're trying to, as you say, you were trying to live up to this expectation of this picture perfect doll, and you started losing confidence but was there kind of a moment in time that you suddenly realized this, or was it kind of a gradual thing over a period of time?
It was, I was picking up these situations in which I realized, look, I really don't have, I don't know how to stand up and stand tall and say no to people that were treating me like a doll.
You're right. Yeah.
And there was a very particular moment in which I felt that the situation between the relationship between my management and me was just a little bit too, into bullying the direction, and that's where I remember I just scraped up the makeup off of my face, and I ran outside, and I ran until I couldn't run anymore, and then I fell down, and I just started crying, and I said, okay, what do I do? How do I get out of this? And I heard this little voice within saying, go back to your dream, go back to where you felt strong, where you believed, and that gave me strength, that little moment of that, calming down, turning inward and saying, okay, I remember your why.
Huge, absolutely huge that.
Yeah. And then after that, I really, nothing was going to stop me. I have to say, I did have, I needed some sort of more like encouragement and support. So I did have a spiritual awakening as well, and that helped me to know that this concept idea that maybe we're all connected. Maybe there's something bigger that connects us all that I am a part of. And there I found my strength too, because otherwise I just really needed that courage, and that connection was my courage. Yeah.
So was that at that time that you moved and you actually moved countries? Was that around that time as you actually chose to immigrate to the States?
Yes.
Wow. So before we move on to that part of it, because I think that's so interesting. So when you said you had this kind of spiritual awakening, what was that specifically for you, Tajci, and how did it come alive for you?
Yes. Well, I had, I grew up as in communism, and it was total atheism, and I loved it. I mean, I was happy with science and art. Art was my connection with, beauty and truth and divine, right? And so I didn't really have the need for anything more. But when I was on that top, I was starting to feel more and more lonely,
right,
and more empty. All of this success, the money, the fame, it meant nothing to me. Nothing. I was like an empty shell. And there was one point where, if you actually look at my videos, you'll see that I resembled Marilyn Monroe. I had the same hair, and I had the kind of like same moves. It was a part of the image, the brand. But, I had this moment where I hated my life so much because, like her, she wanted to see the world to see her for who she was, but she could never compete with her brand. And I had this thought, I'm going to end up like her. I'm just going to end up killing myself. And my best friend, I was so close. And my best friend said, "You know what? Why don't you come and I'll introduce you to some of my friends." And these friends turned out to be these Dominican monks and seminarians, and teenagers, right? And they shared with me, I mean, anything, and books, spiritual books, but also inspirational books, music, anything to open up my heart and to let me know that I am loved. That was all. They didn't give me any theology, any like lectures, any like pointing fingers saying blah, 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 They just open up my heart and saying, there is love. It's bigger than you and I, and you are loved, and you are enough, and you matter, and you're significant. Without your makeup on, without your being a doll, without your success, without your fans, you're still beautiful, powerful you. And that's exactly what I was needing.
And that gave you the courage. That's incredible. That Yes. Yeah. It's giving me goosebumps, actually. That's amazing. So wow. So that really is what the most important thing. We were talking a little bit offline, about how you being a pop star is really, it shone the spotlight on how little you actually, even though you were sharing your voice in a physical sense, it really wasn't your voice. And the fact that you got so lonely, but really being this really successful pop star, it shone the spotlight on you that you could really see for yourself what a gaping hole there was between your authentic voice and the actual voice that was being portrayed as your brand, And I think that we talked about really going internally and really connecting with yourself and really valuing your true worth. That you are enough, you are important, and you are loved, which is absolutely huge. And I think what every woman really wants.
Yes.
At the end of the day, and that's really what gave you courage to move forward and take that next step. So that's incredible.
Yes. Because if we don't, until we really know that and live it, then it's easier for us to listen to the voices that tell us you're not enough, or you're nothing without me.
That's right.
You need me to, and whoever that me is, or whatever that me is.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. So now I'm really intrigued because you took the step and you immigrated. Now I've immigrated twice to 2 different continents. I know how scary it is and what a huge move it is, moving to different countries and different continents. But you took this plunge and decided to start a new life in America and really to live, as you call it, the American dream. So So what, can you walk us through that kind of stage in your life?
Casey, I left everything behind. I wanted to start over. It's completely fresh. And so I literally like left. I right after when I made the decision, my team and they're all like, okay, well, first of all, you can't leave. And I said, well, I am leaving.
Wow.
And then there was a little bit like, trying to stop me. And so whatever I had, because the war had started. So I stopped working for money and I worked for charity. And then whatever I had left as savings, I just gave it I put it in a poor box anonymously.
Wow.
So I came to America with a couple of $100, 2 suitcases. And here I am, New York. I had one friend paid for the first 10 days of a hotel. And then I was on my own. And my dad had his coworker wrote a number of her sister who lived somewhere in the boroughs, in Queens. So I could connect with them. I really wanted to fresh start. And this was before social media, before internet. So I knew I had no followers, like they couldn't follow me.
You'd well and truly left them behind.
Yes, I truly left them behind. And it was like jumping off the cliff, but I was so joyous. It was such an adventure. But you know what? I knew that no matter what, I had my 2 hands, I had my, my feet, I had my healthy body, and I could survive. That's all I needed. I had me. And I had this sense of, that I'm not alone wherever I am because of the consciousness of that love that I belong to. I am not alone. And it was awesome. I mean, it was great. I loved, and I could barely speak English. I always say that is
just so brave. That is really that's a brave move, that's incredible.
But, I always tell young people, look, my mother said to me, you can always come back, and so I have to say that my parents provided that sort of, knowledge, support that, hey, if everything else fails, you can always get on a plane and come back. Cry in my lap and my embrace and until you're better.
Yeah, that's incredible. So Tajci, you also mentioned, and I love this analogy that you shared, is that you a mum of 3 boys too, and you actually shared this analogy of a merry-go-round, and that you were on this kind of carousel spinning around, and really when you fell off the first time was when you got to the pinnacle of success as a pop star and realized that wasn't enough for you, and you really wanted to connect with your true self again. And then the second time was actually when you fell off again, as part of what your kind of perception was of living the American dream as well, I guess. So can you share with us a little bit around that kind of what that challenge was, and where you were in your journey and what you were kind of living into and what your life looked like at that point in time?
Yeah. So, my first carousel was, like you said, the success, the fun, the fame, and it was spinning fast, and it was over in 2 years. While this American dream, it was a lot more difficult because it's you're building it. You're looking around, you're listening to the voices. Oh, you're happy if you do this. You're going to be happier if you have this. And so you kind of want to fit in again. And I always say, I switched continents. I left everything behind, except I took one thing with me. I took with me that voice of judgment that still was telling me, who do you think you are?
Wow.
And that voice just was always looking for validation. All right, well, if I do this, I'll be validated. I'll be accepted, right? If I, if I belong to this mom's group, if I take my kids to this class or that class, or if I get married and have a house that looks like this, all of this, and that is the American dream. And I married a wonderful husband who is, he is like the definition of American spirit and American entrepreneurship. This guy is so out of the box, okay, that he was, we were both very adventurous spirit. And so he said, okay, let's just, we had a house and a little picket fence, but let's just get into a car and drive around the country and do free concerts because we can, right? And it was crazy because I had I had one baby and then two babies and three babies. I was a avid nurser. And so I would nurse these kids on the road, in the car, these babies, sing. It was crazy. So I was even giving, and I was doing something really good. And we went to church on Sunday and everything was perfect. But it really wasn't. Because I was once again developing this, oh, look, I have a nice husband, beautiful, healthy kids. I have, I'm doing what I love to do. I am following all the steps and I'm falling apart inside. And now I can't tell anybody because everybody expects that I am, I've done the switch before, so I should be wiser now. But I'm still struggling. So what's wrong with me? And then I don't want to, fall apart and show my tears again because nobody wants to listen. Yeah. And I got on the same carousel, stuck. Your life looks perfect. You're always smiling for that perfect photo that you're going to post on Facebook. Yeah. Right? And everything is good. And yet it wasn't really, my self-care was non-existent. I mean, we were traveling, we were on the road all the time. I had 3 kids. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't sleeping. I was grumpy. I was fighting with my husband. And then I started feeling more and more depressed. And then I developed these horrible fears, irrational fears. My husband and I, we were watching some videos when kids were little babies. And, and he said, we were talking what did you want then? And I remember there was one point where I was my biggest, how you envision your goal from whatever you want. I was so broken with fears that my goal was to be alive in 3 months. I was, I was just so, I had these panic attacks.
Yeah.
Anxieties. Wow. And I couldn't tell that to anybody because, nobody wanted to listen to me. I was perfect again.
Well, that's the thing. We had to look good in front of everyone, right? It's the expectation of society is that everyone's got it together and everything is perfect. And you and I shared that offline as well, is that how important it is really in this day and age to stand up in your power and really share truly authentically how life really is. And it's not perfect all the time. That's the thing, is that people have this expectation that, oh, so-and-so's got the perfect life. Just look at them. They've got, the house with the white picket fence. They've got these beautiful, healthy children with a loving husband. And really, in reality, people are falling apart, but very quietly. And it really is up to us to really share how to get out of that and really find your voice and find your power about how you can truly start making a difference to your own life. Because once you connect internally to your big why, really that has ripple effects and that really can ripple out across your communities and your families and all that kind of thing, Tajci. So really, I'd love to, that must have been a really scary moment for you, in time. And I'd love to hear how you, really, what, again, was there a moment in time that you really realized that I can't actually carry on like this? It's something I can't keep quiet. I've got to stand up and say something because this is just really the end for me.
Yes.
Was there a moment in time?
Mm-hmm. Yes. My marriage was falling apart. My husband and I eventually got separated and we were still working together. We were still out on the road, as a family. I was singing and people were looking at us again saying, you're perfect. And if I try to share, I wrote songs that were just, I was screaming through my songs, right? I am falling apart. But people look at me and say, oh, but, just be grateful. You have so much to be grateful for. So I know I have a lot to be grateful for, and I am grateful, but it doesn't mean that I don't struggle. See, that's the thing. And then, because then I started feeling more guilty, and I think women do. You look at your life, you should be perfect. You should be grateful, but you're struggling. And so you feel guilty about, not having all these feelings.
Exactly. That's right.
And it's a carousel. It's a stuck point. So there was a time, so I had my first mammogram, and, my doctor called and said, hey, there's something I don't like. I want to take a biopsy. And so everything was fine. But in that time, those 2 days when you're waiting for the results, the whole life is like it really was. I was already struggling with anxieties and fear. My marriage was already falling apart. So here I am, I have this voice that is saying to me, still, no matter what you do, you're nobody. You're not significant, right? And I do have to say that, I did go, and I will say this for the sake of those viewers who maybe, who are, I was again looking outward. Even in my spirituality, I was waiting for this miracle to come from the outside. And I was negating myself. We talk about surrender, like leave yourself, we're nobody without God, without the external, right? But that brought me into this place where, again, I am nobody. I'm not significant. And if I die, if my results are bad, and if I have, if I go, my husband's not gonna, he's gonna be happy that he doesn't have to deal with all the mess, right? This is like, obviously, this is not true. This is just in my head.
Your story.
And it was in that moment that I said, okay, I have to stop. I have to look at the fear. I have to face my fear, and I have to do something about it. And that was the first thing I did. The fear was so overwhelming that, everything kind of like, it became like, if you think this carousel was spinning so fast that I became nauseous, and I became just like, okay, I can't breathe. And in that moment, I actually started breathing, and all I was doing was just focus on my breath, just breathing in and out. And then I was like, okay, I guess, this breath is for as long as I can take breath in and out. That's all that matters. I am okay. And again, that connected me with this tide, life is a tide. Life is this, breathing, living thing, right? And for as long as I'm a part of it, breathing, I'm going to be okay. And that's when I started to make changes. And I have to say, I knew that, look, I could leave my husband. I know how to do this, right? I'd leave everything behind, switch continents, and start over. Okay. But I was like, okay, if I keep doing that, I'm going to run out of continents eventually.
That's right.
So I was like, okay, there has to be, I have to just go inward, because the only place where we can really make a change is within. So before I run again, okay, let me see if maybe, what do I have to switch inside of me?
Okay.
And what the switch was, again, going back to that embracing the love, the embracing that I am enough, that I don't need the external validation to be, embracing my own power and standing on my own feet and claiming that, I am. And that was huge.
That's
that was
huge.
really
That's massive.
Yeah. But it didn't it wasn't, okay, magic wand, now you're done. It took years to practice. That's why, when I do my talk, I say, so after you make that internal switch, practice, commit to it and practice, because you go, I realize life is not a carousel. It's a roller coaster.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there's always going to be ups and downs. But for as long as you practice that, you go back to, okay, you teach your mind, your heart, your soul to silence those voices that are trying to convince you. And you have to practice that. When I play piano, and I, as a musician, you get a piece, you have to practice it. Otherwise, you can't play it.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I talk about that. It's so true. And I'd love to hear what your practice, like if you have a kind of ritual that you do or how you go about that, Tajci, because I think that's a really interesting piece. But I talk about it as that I have the same things. And I think every woman is the same, is that we've got this quiet inner voice saying, you're not enough. You haven't got, you're not good enough. You haven't got enough. You're not, all these kind of negative, this inner critic inside you. And it's so hard to quieten it. But I think it's really, you've had this all your life, and it's a muscle that's been going on in your head. And now it's another muscle that you've got to develop. And that's the one that's really teaching you your self-worth and how much you are valued and you are loved. And it's definitely something, as you say, life is definitely a roller coaster, and you'll have great days and you'll have bad days. But really, if you're practicing and strengthening that muscle every day, then that eventually becomes stronger than this quiet inner critic. So I definitely agree with you on that one, Tajci, but it's hard, it's like, as you say, and when you're starting off and you've had this muscle or voice that's been going on in your head all this time, it's really difficult. So how do you kind of take that, now that you've recognized that that's an issue, and really practice overcoming it? Have you got like a daily ritual or practice or something that you do that you kind of start to strengthen that muscle?
I have a few tools that I always remind myself. They're like my mantras.
Right.
There's a power in mantras. Just going back to that basic truth. Okay. And so one of them is, what defines me? That was the first thing that for me was huge. Like, I needed to know that the music doesn't define me. My marriage doesn't define me. My motherhood doesn't define me. The fact that, I'm Croatian or I'm American, my faith, if you're religious, whatever, none of that defines who we are, who I am. What defines me is deep within my soul. And so every time I get, a struggle, I go back to that truth. I am defined by the depths of my soul. There is my definition. And then also what helped me was, and it's still helping me. I always have a book, or I watch TED Talks, something that is, Brené Brown, Lama. Yes. And I also have to embrace my personality. For example, I loved Enneagram. And because, I needed the self-awareness and self-examination and really understanding my actions. Because a lot of that, if I snap at my husband, or if I am, unkind, why am I unkind? Not because, it's my personality. I used to say, I yell because I'm Croatian. No, I yell. And that's my excuse, right? So to really know myself, and Enneagram was really good because it shows that personality is, we have these personality traits, but they're not defining us. And we have, levels in stress, and when we're really in unhealthy state, if we're tired, hungry, if our needs are not met. Emotional, physical, spiritual, and in intellectual needs. Those have to be met. And that's one thing that I struggle with, because I wish I could tell you, that I wake up every morning and do the same routine. I don't. So for me, it's really going back to that, my definition, what defines me, breath.
Well, you mentioned that as the first thing. That's huge, right?
Yeah. And that, breath always focuses me back onto my soul. I love this image where, your soul is like the bottom of the ocean, and the surface of the ocean is where all the storms come, right? And it gets choppy. It's exposed to the weather, to the life situations. But your soul, it always it moves like a breath, gentle tide, right? So I always remind myself of that image. And I mean, daily. And then I watch my actions. It helps me the self-awareness is huge for me. And it helps me to really be able to observe and then connect. That's really And in that, I become more confident to just be who I am.
Yeah.
I'm able to be vulnerable, to show my vulnerability. I'm not, I'm less and less insecure. And I'm building this, I'm honoring, what we're doing is just honoring who we are. We don't have to, invent something new.
Absolutely. Honor who you really are. That's where the power truly is, right? Absolutely. Wow, it's incredible, Tajci. And I'd love to now share, so where are you now? I mean, you've got this amazing show, Waking Up America, and you're speaking and empowering audiences around America. Can you share with us like where your journey's taken you now that you've kind of really become self-aware and figured out that moving continents isn't going to be the answer, but really going within and making it a daily practice, that you just strengthening that and honoring who you truly are. And now you're creating these ripples across, from yourself, you're kind of emanating these ripples out to your community and to your family. And so what's that meant for you, and where are you now with your business? I'd love to hear how this journey's ended for you. As it's not really ended, but it's kind of almost like a new start again, if you like.
Yes, continuing. Yes, my Waking Up in America show, and it's only Waking Up in America because, and you mentioned something when we chatted before, that American spirit. And I'm an immigrant to America, but there's something in the American spirit that's courageous and free to look inside and not be afraid. And that's why, I mean, it's Waking Up in America or anywhere else in the world. But it's really, I'm looking for people, and they're everywhere, Casey. They're everywhere. People who have made this shift and embraced their I am, and they're stepping in their power shoes, and they're making a difference. And I believe that we are, you talk about ripples. I believe that we're now creating a tidal wave. We're flooding the earth with this shift of kindness, of love, because it's self-awareness. It's claiming your I am, but it's not selfish.
No,
there's no
absolutely.
greed. There's no place for greed. And I think that's what, what I see in my guests. I interview. So the show is I interview my guests about this waking up moment and how they shifted into the life they were created for, instead of living, somebody else's expectation. And it can be, people who were in the wrong careers because they got scholarship or they wanted to do it for their parents, or people who have followed the career that they really didn't want, or they were in a bad marriage because they just, couldn't admit that this was wrong. And then they found the courage to make the shift.
Yeah.
And now they are empowered and making a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love it. I love the fact that I can interview these people. I love the fact that I can bring these stories to the world. And I am thrilled that, I for me, it feels like I stepped in from my, and I love wearing heels. Okay, I love wearing heels. But I love these pair of work boots that I found that don't look so pretty, but they make me feel good. I can run in them. I feel powerful and excited because I feel like I can carry other people in my arms and lift them up and give in a different way than just, hear me sing. I
love it.
Although yes, I'm very, very grateful.
I was just going to ask, because one of my next questions was really, what has that meant to you? But really you've answered that so succinctly, Tajci, really just hearing the passion and the excitement and, your commitment to creating this change. And it really comes back full circle to your little 4-year-old voice and your big why, and really changing the world and coming back to that. So you really are living your dream now, which is just, it's incredible. And what's that meant for you and your family? I'd love to know, like this whole shift in you and, where you were at the point where you were looking at separating from your husband. What's that really meant for you?
Well, that was hard. I mean, we decided, once we decided to, because I asked my husband, so what do you think? How much hope do you have that we can work this out? Because if I'm able to make this, if I'm committing to make the change within. I'm not going to do that if you're not going to do the same. Right? I mean, it has to be together. You have to both, right, want it. And so he said, I have a 0.1% hope. I said, okay, well, it's still a positive fraction. But it's hard. It's hard, Casey. It's hard because both of us are different pace. And again, you know, it's a struggle. But for as long as I am true to myself and my truth, there's no reason for me not to allow him to be on his journey.
Absolutely.
And if I really love that man, I will want to be there, you know, and be a companion on his journey, just like he is on mine.
Absolutely.
And that's a message that is it's hard for us because it's hard already to go on our own journey.
Yeah.
But then to align the two people, it's just hard.
It is hard. It is hard. But I think, you know, and that's where the courage comes in, Tajci. And I think, you know, like that's where, you know, I've been getting goosebumps through this whole interview is that you really, the courageous steps that you've taken to really look inwards and look at your, you know, really look at yourself honestly and truthfully, and then the courage that it's taken to actually step into your power. And what's that meant for you in terms of, like, how fulfilled you feel in terms of the change that you're making and the impact that you're making on lives is just truly inspirational. It's been amazing. Wow. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. And I'm raising my boys to talk about their feelings, you know, to not be afraid to. So that has been a huge gift for me to be able to, you know, bring what I know about myself and my journey and to just, you know, start them young.
I totally agree. I mean, we share very similar, we both mums to 3 boys, and it's very interesting. I look at myself thinking, why am I so passionate about girls and women, and why am I doing this empowered women revolution, really, you know? But it's really, you know, I really honestly believe that, you know, as women, we really are, I think it is harder to really find your voice. I think there's an image, an expectation that you've got to live into. But I am so on the same page as you, is that we start the boys young and really get them in touch with their own feelings and let them really, like, not put this masculine barrier, you know, that I've got to look a certain way too, but really live into who they truly are too. So I think it's a message that resonates across both genders, you know. So I love that.
Yes, because then they'll treat women differently as well.
Exactly.
You know? And I really I thank you for what you're doing, because there's, you know, I do a lot of speaking, and to maybe groups who really need to hear this message, because women you know, there's so many of us still who are believing that our place is, you know, that we're not, you know, that we can't step into the power, that we are better off just sitting back and letting the world run itself, you know, that we're mothers and we are, you know, doing our thing in our marriage or in our kitchen or, you know, in our little world. And I think that's what I do. I really am passionate about lifting women up and saying, whatever is those voices that make you feel small and make you feel you're not enough, make you feel you can't make the change. And not everybody has to go out and change the world. But like what you're saying, I so believe in that. When you are, even if you, you know, just make that change within your own heart, even when you go to the groceries.
Exactly.
The ripple will be different.
Absolutely. Your whole experience in life will be different. Absolutely. Even if it's just, you know, even if you make an impact on your one person, it could be your husband or your children. As you say, we've not all got, you know, really massive dreams to change the world, you know, but really it's just living into your truth and putting those quiet voices, that fear of judgment and all those voices that us women suffer from or have. I think it's really, you've shared a great strategy, I think, Tajci, on how to overcome that and really, get an insight into what that's taken for you. So I thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability, and it's just been an amazing conversation. I'd love to dive in. I've got a lightning round as part of the show that I do at the end, and I'd love to just share with with our listeners, what is your favorite quote? And it can be a life or business quote. What is that? Do you have one that you live by every day?
Well, I love everything is hard until it gets easy by Goethe. That I just love. And I keep going back to it. Because change is hard. Everything is hard before it gets easy.
Love it.
And then there's Simon Sinek, like we talked about why. They don't buy what you do, they don't buy why you do it. I think that's in my, when I look at what I do, I always go back to why.
Why? It's huge. I love that. I love both of those, actually. And do you have a specific woman that you really look up to? And it could be a famous person or someone personal that you really look up to, Tajci, and why as well?
That's such a hard question because there's so many amazing women, I mean, you are just my inspiration, everything that you do, and the guests that you had at the summit. And the women I interview in my show, Glennon Doyle Melton, I don't know if you know her, mamastory.com. Oh, she's such a beautiful force. She's a truth teller and hope spreader. That's what she calls herself.
Oh, I love that.
And she is so open and so brutally honest and disarmingly authentic. She's very, very, very inspiring. And then I really like Oprah and Ariana Huffington, who are these massively powerful women who really are, I believe they're genuinely, doing what they do to spread the wisdom and to empower as many people as they can. I really...
Well, that's incredible resources. I'll definitely have to check out that one. That sounds amazing. So what was her name again?
Glennon Doyle Melton, and her community, online community, is mamastory.com.
Oh, lovely. I'll definitely be checking her out. She sounds perfect. And Tajci,
my own mom, I have to say my own mom is big inspiration because she lived so long of her life, almost I want to say lost, but now she's going to turn 65 this year. And she has this gift of healing and she's finally embracing it. And I just love her so much. She's just so much strength.
So inspiring as well. I think we can all look at our mums as well. And especially growing up in Croatia in the time that she grew up there as well. It's, the strength that it took to live in that kind of environment. I mean, I'm originally from Zimbabwe and grew up in just after the war, the War of Independence then too. And, you look back at our parents and what they went through, it really is truly inspiring. So I love that, Tajci. My last question is the barrier to female entrepreneurship. Now, I think we touched on that a little bit in our conversation, but I'd just love to get your insights into what do you think is the biggest challenge or the biggest barrier to female entrepreneurship today? There's some amazing statistics out there that there's more and more women business owners, and yet they're not successful. And I'd love to hear what do you think their biggest challenge is?
Well, I want to say the culture, the mentality, the men's world, but I will say that I think we are our own obstacles. We're all our biggest challenge. Mm-hmm. And we have to, somebody said, it was Malala's father. He said, I just tried to unteach her what she'd learned mm-hmm. when she was getting the Nobel Prize, mm-hmm. Peace Prize. And that's what, I think we just have to unlearn what we've learned mm-hmm. in this world, in our environments, mm-hmm. and erase that obstacle. Because otherwise it's just excuses, right? We can Absolutely. Say, well, we have to make the difference. We are the ones who can make the change. I love, Gandhi's, be the change in the world you wish to see.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm going to end on that. That was So inspiring. Tajci, thank you so much. Now, where can everybody find you online? I'd love to be able to share Waking Up in America and help, you've shined the spotlight on amazing people who've lived the journey. Where can we find that and you online?
It's on Huffington Post every week. It's published there. Mm-hmm. It's also wakingupinamerica.net.
Okay.
That's the website. And I also have a Facebook a group that we just launched, #WakingUpInAmerica. You can find us. And I have Tajci.net, but it's so difficult to pronounce that just, go to Waking Up in America and I'll be there.
That's fantastic. Well, I'll put all those links in the show notes. And truly, it's been an honor and an inspiration to have you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you so much. And big kiss to all of the women out there. Yes, you rock.
Love it. Thank you. And that wraps up another episode of the Empowered Women Show. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And if you have a chance and you enjoyed this episode, it would really mean the world to me if you would head on over to iTunes and leave me an honest rating and review of the show. That way you'll help boost rankings and really shine the spotlight on these amazing women guests. You'll find the link in the show notes over at www.empoweredwomenrevolution.com. Thank you so much and see you next time.